Thank you so much for this honor, for recognizing the need for in-depth reporting on Islam and Muslims. And of course, I thank BuzzFeed News for creating this unique beat, U.S. Muslim Life, a rare space where serious issues related to Muslims got in-depth magazine treatment. That doesn't mean we are out there doing PR for Muslims. We're witnesses, we're observers, but we have a lens that's different. We have a perspective that's different. All of these stories belong to the brave individuals and families who shared them with me. I'm continually humbled by their trust and candor in discussing what are often very painful and even dangerous topics. While some questioned, why do Muslims, just 1% of the population, why do they need a dedicated reporter? BuzzFeed understood that how government and society treat the 3.5 million Muslims in this country is among the most pressing civil rights issues of our time. I was still out of work and feeling pretty low one day, so my mom and I went to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. It turns out there's no cure for self-pity, quite like reading about the struggles of early Black journalists to cover lynching, Reconstruction, the Civil Rights era. My favorite quote in the museum is from Mary Shad Carey, the first African-American woman publisher in all of North America. She was talking about the hard work of covering race as a Black journalist in the 1800s when she said, quote, "It's better to wear out than to rust out." The man whose name is on this prize tonight knew that. The Goldziher Prize is named after a Hungarian Jewish scholar who became an expert on Islamic jurisprudence and who brought the study of Islam into European departments of religion at a time when that was unthinkable. Goldziher was not afraid of the other. He was curious. May we all be so intrepid, so committed, and so thoughtful in our own work. Thank you very much. I heard about this town, Kalkaska, Michigan, where there was a 4-term mayor who had just posted on Facebook that all Muslims should be killed. And he was running for re-election, and there was this rebellion against him. So who was behind this rebellion? There's no Muslims in this town. They're Republicans, they're conservative Christians, many of them evangelical Christians. And I continue to look for stories like that where people are going against the grain, don't deal in shorthand and caricature of any side.
Quick question. What happened to the mayor?
Oh. He was voted out.
The success of a piece is usually judged by the numbers. How many people clicked on it? How many people shared it? How many people are talking about it at any given moment? But usually those aren't the pieces that matter the most to the journalist. The pieces that matter the most are the ones that tell the most truth. This is why I chose this selection to show you guys tonight.
Part of me wears it because of the fact that it is ingrained in my identity and who I am. Part of me wears it because my mother would be very sad if I didn't. I do seriously sometimes consider taking it off. I think I started wearing it when I was about 5 years old.
5? Yeah. I've always thought like 9.
There's definitely pictures of me wearing like tank tops and shorts and wearing a hijab on my head with you like as a baby.
I feel really weird about this whole conversation only because I feel like as a guy it's not my place to have any opinions or any ideas on what women should be choosing to wear on their heads.
Smart guy.
My name is Ayman Ismail. To grow up Muslim means to grow up being feared. So I'm traveling the country to find out for myself if there's really any reason to be afraid of American Muslims.
I know it's a bit unconventional for that to be considered journalism. I'm just kind of hanging out with my sister on some steps. But it meant the world to me that people got to see it. So I want to tell you how this all kind of happened, how I ended up on the steps with my sister. I was at the Republican National Convention.
Are you Muslim? Are you Muslim?
Yes, I am Muslim. A man in a full-blown Thomas Jefferson costume said, "Hey, are you a Muslim?"
How do you treat a woman?
I think every Muslim in the room is kind of nodding along, being like, "Yeah, that's what happens." And he was like, "Oh, well, your prophet believes in and beating women, and he's a pedophile, and all these things that the people around me were made uncomfortable by, but for me it felt like an opportunity to have this discussion in a public way. While we were walking in, someone mentioned, hey, that's what you should do here. You should just walk around and engage people. And we did.
I don't have a negative feeling about Muslims. I have a negative feeling about people who want to kill me.
Ban on all Muslims coming into the country, good or bad?
I think that there needs to be a temporary ban.
Oh, we were so close.
It was called The Party of Jesus Meets a Muslim. For this topic to be explored, we can't just be reduced to sound bites. That video about the hijab is 15, 16 minutes long. And when we have different broadcast news outlets who are constrained because they have a billion segments in a day, they have to act like it's sports because they have to keep the viewer watching. It's not the best format to have that discussion. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you so much for the Goldziher. The demonization of minorities is just an essential part of politics. And it appeals to just the most basic foundation of the human instinct in a way that I don't know if we'll ever fix. The responsibility of the reporter is to reveal the sophisticated humanness of their subject, because there's another mechanism at play that is trying to do the exact opposite.
There are a lot of people doing incredible work on Muslim communities today and other minority communities. An opening has really occurred in this moment where people in communities that are often felt to be who they feel they see themselves only in stereotype are finally getting to see themselves. This is one of the most diverse places on the planet to be a Muslim. People who hail from 75 different racial and ethnic backgrounds, people who practice in different ways across this country. The series was quantified by two podcasters that opened it. I want to play you a piece of tape from them as they talked about what it's like to be Muslim here.
We don't exist as a vulnerable population that only is in response to the climate that we're in. We live day to day. We have to manage our anger and our budgets and relationships. A lot of the space that Muslims were given in the media was can you come and react to issue X or issue Y? Not what are you interested in? What are you and your friends talking about? A question asked never. Yeah.
And so I think about these two women. They started their own podcast, Identity Politics, so they could ask those questions that nobody ever asked them. I also did stories about people who were going through really difficult moments, who were dealing with a time period where they feel they were always or constantly asked to prove their patriotism, their Americanness. And a lot of times that's in surprising places like San Jose that you think of as diverse and open-minded. I met a family there. They had a middle schooler who was being bullied at school, not just by her peers, but by her teacher. They were passing out articles on what Islam was, and the example they gave was a stoning in Afghanistan. And so the kids started to equate her with that. And on top of all that, her older sister, a special needs teacher, was dealing with this at school. So I'll play you a piece of tape from that piece from Maimona.
She showed up early on September 11th to get everything ready for a new unit on suspense. She turned the corner to her classroom.
And I find the windows and doors vandalized with words associating me with terrorism. ISIS, and just very hateful words, profanities. And I was just shocked.
Maimona went to the school again. She says one person asked if she wanted to change schools.
Your solution is essentially to get rid of me? I'm not the issue here.
And so what she did was she ran for the school board, and she got on that board. And right afterwards, at 23, she said, I have never seen somebody that looks like me on one of these boards. And she ran again, and she won again. I'll play you one more clip from, this actually opened the entire series. And it is a California-based preacher, and his name's Osama Cannon. He said this about what it is to be an American Muslim.
The great scholar said that Islam is kind of like a pure, clear water that takes the color of whatever riverbed it flows over. I'm hoping that Muslims in America can kind of color that bedrock in a beautiful way.
Thank you so much. I think a lot of the last 2 years has been soul-searching for this country because people realized we don't know each other. In an ideal world, eventually, we won't have beats that look at specific communities because we will be represented as Americans, Muslims, and other communities. But right now, often what ends up happening is that these communities are only reached out to in moments of crisis. And all of the other stuff that makes you a person, of faith or otherwise in general, don't get told. And eventually the stories that are about, and are happening now, right, that are about science and the environment that impact us all, will include these names, these faiths, these identities.
As filmmakers, I believe that, we should do work that open doors to our audiences, places we've never been. And Chen and I, we didn't even realize when we started on this journey of making this film, how disclosing one as HIV positive is still largely seen as a huge taboo in the American Muslim community. And that was like our first and the biggest challenge to sort of overcome.
I was a heroin addict. I was spiritually bankrupt. It felt lonely. It really did. I couldn't really talk to the brothers that did about what I was going through. They didn't want to hear that,
As a journalist, you always have some expectations about something, and sometimes like so-called as the stereotype. But when you really listen to the people and sit with them, you find things are different. And I think that's what, as a journalist, should do, is just present what the people really are and how their voice should be sound.
I'm so proud to have been able to work on this with Chen and share this with all of you.
For a really long time, I've been taking pictures, but I never got to do a story on Islam or Muslims. So I was like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? I would talk to my sister about it, who's sitting in the crowd right now. And so just casually one day we went shopping, and she was like, it's time to pray. We went to the dressing room, put it on the floor, prayed. And in that moment I was like, this is really odd, but I bet a lot of people do this. So I started creating little images. I was asking people around, would you tell me about a place that you prayed before, and can we go back there, and can we pray there, and I can take the image of you while you're praying. And a few months later, I got accepted to grad school, and all my classmates are not Muslim. I was the only Muslim in the entire school, and I kind of slid one picture in my portfolio, and they made me stop and talk about it. And they were like, can you go into detail about this? And I kept avoiding it because I didn't want to get pigeonholed into telling stories about Muslims. I thought if someone looked at me, she's gonna work for Goldziher. I just immediately thought that's what it was gonna be. So I avoided it. And then I had a professor named Torrin Beasley, and he told me, he was like, if you don't tell your truth, someone else is going to. And who better can do it than you? So I started taking more images for my thesis. So it has photos, it has a video, and a community engagement piece. So on Instagram, people can submit their own images of people praying in places outside of a mosque or a designated prayer area. They can submit it through a hashtag, just hashtag places you'll pray. And today we have over 24,000 followers, and we have reached every continent. We have 2 images from Antarctica. I was working for Discovery for a little bit, and I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Discovery just moved their headquarters, so they kind of laid off everybody, and you guys called right after. So thank you.